Okay. I'm very excited to be here. And I'm not necessarily excited to be a host per se. Is not something I always imagined myself doing, but more for just being a conduit for other people's experiences to be shared. And so I'll be interviewing people who live internationally. I grew up in Singapore and Hong Kong when I was 4 to 9 years old, and ended up moving back to the States for quite a while, for about 20 years. And once I was an adult, I moved far away from my home in New Jersey to live in Hawaii. And there I met my now husband. And after we got married, we made the conscious decision to live abroad again. My husband also grew up in Singapore as a kid. And this will probably be a story you'll hear about somewhere in the show about how we knew each other. But we ended up moving to Shanghai, China back in 2014. And although our international experience only lasted a couple of years, I'm still so fascinated by international life and the experiences of people who live abroad, or as we call expats. So what I've seen from my own international experiences is that everyone has a story, and regardless of where they've been or how long they've lived abroad, they're really just all so cool. And with the world getting smaller and smaller, sharing these stories can bring people across the globe together. So to be honest, I'm doing this for me. I was a guest on my friend's show called Been There to talk about my experience as a third culture kid, which is growing up in a country other than your parents or your passport country. And it was so fun. And so I was like, I want in. And so here I am, and I hope I enjoy it. This is my first time doing it, and I hope you enjoy it too. And so my first guest is Emily Putnam, a dear, dear friend of mine. Her silliness and quirkiness are the traits that I love the most about her. We met when we both started working in Shanghai back in 2014. And when you move to a new country, having a friend who can make you laugh is essential, because it becomes hectic and stressful at times. And since I've left Shanghai, honestly, we haven't stayed in touch all that frequently. But when we do, it's like no time has passed. And she's just one of those special friends. So I want to introduce Emily to you a little bit more. She describes herself as a 38-year-old, fun-loving, wannabe sourdough bread expert who loves biking and traveling the world. She's been a teacher for 14 years, and 11 of those years being overseas in 4 different countries. She loves dogs and plants and crafting when she has time. Emily, it's such a pleasure to have you as my first guest. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm super excited. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so let's start off by... Oh, huh?
Hello. Marhaba.
Hello. Well, I guess that leads into our first question about where are you? You're in Saudi right now, right?
Yes. Yep. So, Saudi Arabia. So right in the middle. I'm in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. So actually I'm not right in the middle of Saudi, but sometimes it feels that way because we're just kind of surrounded by desert as far as the eye can see.
So what is the rest? I mean, what is the rest of Saudi like?
I'm really excited actually, because we have a trip planned since we're all kind of stuck in Saudi right now. I think all of us around the world are stuck in the countries where we are. Anyways, so I'm excited because we have a trip planned to the Red Sea, which is on the west coast of Saudi Arabia. And I think with Saudi, when people think of Saudi Arabia, they think, sand dunes, and that's it. But it's actually a pretty diverse country. Like, we're going to go to the ocean. There's big mountains. There's wadis that are paths and watering holes that you can hike to. And so we're really excited to see a different part of Saudi. We're in the eastern province, so it's more of a sand dune type vibe, but the western side of Saudi is beautiful with the ocean and big mountains. And so we're excited to explore. And
will you go in the water
scuba
there?
diving. They do. They have snorkeling trips that you can do and scuba diving trips that you can do. So I think when we're there, we'll decide if that's something that we do want to go ahead and do. But I think things with Corona are, you just never really know. So I'm not sure if we're running boats out or not. So we'll see when we get there.
Oh, good. Enjoy. Have fun.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's good. That gives us a little insight about Saudi. So let's backtrack a little bit. I want to hear about, kind of just start off with saying like where you've lived, and tell me about where you moved from when you first started going internationally, and your first international experience, and what kind of influenced you to live abroad.
So before I moved overseas, I was living in Palm Springs, California, and I was teaching in one of the schools that was in the same district that I grew up in. I hadn't left the country except to go to Mexico, and I had a colleague who was going into the Peace Corps, and I spoke to him a lot about just being overseas and what he thought it was going to be like, and it just inspired me to, look for possible job opportunities overseas. So one of my good friends there had a friend who was teaching at an international school, and she kind of hooked me up with the job fairs that many of us expat teachers are very familiar with. And so I went to a job fair in San Francisco, and I ended up getting a job, my first post in Thailand. So, which was amazing because, I thought that I wanted to be in Europe. I thought that's where, for some reason, I thought that was going to be like the best place for me to go. And, and maybe less culture shock, I guess. At that time, that was something that scared me. But I ended up getting a position in Thailand, and, I would not change a thing. I would never change what, the path that I have been led on has just been amazing. So I was in Thailand for 3 years, where I met my husband. He moved to the Philippines before we were married. He moved to the Philippines, and I ended up following him the following year.
And he's also a teacher.
He's also, an international school teacher.
You taught at the same school?
We were, we were both teachers at the same school. And then we moved to he moved to the Philippines. I followed him. So he was there for 3 years. I was in the Philippines for 2. And we ended up getting our next job post in Shanghai, China. And we spent 5 years there. Absolutely loved it. And now we're here in Saudi Arabia. So,
and how long have you been in Saudi now?
Ride. This is our first year. Yep, our very first year, and we're loving it. We are loving it so far. There are a lot of things about Saudi that make it very special. We're on a smaller camp, so that has its own challenges. But we have absolutely loved our first few months here, and feel very, very lucky to be here.
So what is it about Saudi that, what is a camp, I guess, first of all, and then also what are you talked about, like, there are things that make it so special here and that you love about it. What are those things? Because I think when people think of Saudi, that's a little scary. And like, even for someone like me who has traveled the world, it was just like, oh, Saudi's not really one of the places that I care to live in. So tell us a little bit about what it's like and why you love it, and also maybe about what brought you there.
Okay. So we have a good friend who also teaches at the camp that we're on. And we contacted her and had asked her, hey, are there any openings at your school? And we ended up interviewing with the principal, who's absolutely amazing, and ended up getting Marty, my husband, ended up getting a job, and I'm taking a year off, which ended up turning into a long-term subbing position, and hopefully a position in the classroom next year.
I thought you were going to
But
continue to be like a lady who lunches.
I mean, that wouldn't be
And...
bad either. I'm kind of like in this position right now where it's like, I'm happy to take another year off. I'm happy to sub. I'm happy to be in the classroom. It's all good right now for
Yeah,
me.
it's a
So
different stress level, right? When you're not the
it,
one leading your own classroom and doing,
yeah,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yes, totally. I've actually really enjoyed substitute teaching, getting to know the kids in the school and the different grade levels. That's been really awesome for me. I've enjoyed it a lot. But Saudi, so like the company that we work for has four camps in their company, and we're actually on the smallest camp. It's on the eastern side of Saudi Arabia, and there's about 3,000 people on our camp.
Mm-hmm.
We have one grocery store. It's called the Commissary, and we have a small beauty shop, and we have a mail center, and we have a really amazing ladies gym and men's gym. So they're separate.
Separate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. The beauty shops are also like the men's barber shop, the women's beauty shop.
Mm-hmm.
We have a tailor, we have a gas station, we have really beautiful hiking, and a cool 5-kilometer path that you can exercise on. We have a golf course. There's a bowling alley, movie theater. So like it's a little bit of the best of everything in one tiny package.
It kind of sounds like a military base to me. I mean, have you ever been on a military base before?
I have, yeah. When I was in Palm Springs, there's a large one near where I was. But I didn't get to explore it as much as I guess maybe would have been. So I could actually see what the camp is like. But
yeah, so we have there's a strong military presence in Hawaii. And so when I was working for the Department of Education, I worked on a military base, and a couple military bases I had to be on. And so I remember just being like, whoa, what is this world like? Because I never grew up with knowing even anybody in the military. I mean, veterans, but not any like current military. And just thinking like, what is this private special clearance place even like? And so, I mean, it sounds very much like that.
Yeah, it is. And there's many security gates that you go through, and the camp is actually divided up into different areas. Like there's the bachelor men have their own area and their own, clearance gate. And then we're in the family camp. And there's a clearance gate there. And then there's a large clearance gate that's at the very beginning of the camp. So there's a lot of security.
So how do bachelors hook up?
I think that there are, there's opportunities to meet people. I think that you meet people maybe perhaps that you work with, or, I don't think that there's a lot of dating outside of the camps, but definitely, dating like within, maybe people you work with, or I'm not very much.
You're not in really that market.
Scene now, so. yeah, I mean, I have a few single friends here who do date, but they also will date people who are outside of Saudi. Like Bahrain has a large military presence there, and
Hmm.
so there I have friends who have met um, guys in the military, and so yeah, I mean, the opportunities here. I'm not sure if they do like Tinder or Bumble or that kind of stuff, but yeah.
Good, good. So what are, you've lived abroad for 11 years now. We've talked about, when we were both in Shanghai, we talked about like when is the jig up? Like, how long are we going to do this for? And I remember you guys talking about moving back to this, like having a plan to move back to the States.
Yeah.
What what convinced you to go to Saudi? Like, what was it? And then, well, it sounds like your friend a little bit, right? But I guess what makes you continue to live overseas versus coming back to the States? And is there anything that gives you pause about continuing to live abroad?
Yeah, so I mean, the nice thing about Saudi where we are right now is that it feels very much like home. And actually, Saudi outside of the camp too. Like there's a lot of shopping. There's a lot of Western, things that you would look for in like little pieces of home here.
Hmm.
I mean, we don't go to countries to have experiences that would be exactly like what we're having at home. You move overseas because you want something a little bit different.
Hmm.
But it's always home is always there. That's always, I mean, I think that's the most challenging thing about being overseas is that I miss my friends and my family terribly. And this summer, has been a challenge also because I would be home right now, if it weren't for COVID, we would be home right now. Luckily, I did get to go home during the winter break for a longer break. Like I went back
Hmm.
in mid-November, so that was really nice. But yeah, I mean, I think what keeps us overseas is, I mean, the lifestyle, the opportunity to be able to save. I think is greater when you're living overseas. The teaching, I loved my teaching gig when I was in California, but the teaching overseas has been very different. I feel like you meet so many different people, and you learn so much from these people who come from all of these different countries, and you all get together and you learn from one another, and you collaborate, which for me is really important.
And I remember it's not
And
just like it's not just your coworkers. It's also sometimes like meeting with some of the parents and becoming friendly with them, or, I mean, that's how I remember when we're at SCIS. Is that the same in Saudi too?
it is like, I think that, the people, because it's such a small camp, like you end up building relationships with so many different people, not just, people that you work with, but, people from outside of the school as well. There's lots of groups that you can join, interest groups that you can join, which I really have enjoyed. I think Shanghai was unique in that too. Like I left Shanghai with friends who were parents, like were not teachers, they were parents that I met through the school, and ended up building relationships with them, and
Hmm.
I really have enjoyed that, actually, like in all of the schools that I've been at overseas. I mean, I think the community, because you're an expat, you're away from home, and so we're all trying to find our place, and we're all trying to support one another. And so I think that's another thing that I love about being an expat teacher, is that you meet so many people who, you know, they you're looking to build these relationships, and so finding friends is not as difficult, I think, as it can be maybe in the States. Although I will say that, you know, when you're overseas, those friendships, you develop them really fast, and you're in this moment together, you're in this country, you're in this moment together. And then, you know, when you leave, you go your own separate ways, and you'll catch up with people and you'll see them, but it's not like it was when you were in the country experiencing, you know, those things together.
It's kind of like this little capsule, right? Like this time bubble capsule of a special time and place. And like, if you know, you or I ever went back to Shanghai, it wouldn't look anything near, I mean, not just physically because it developed so quickly, but I mean, in terms of the people that would be there. And yeah, I mean, pretty much the people there's only a handful of people that we knew that are still there, right? So it's not like you can go back and recreate these moments.
No,
right? Because
it's
the expat world is so transient.
I mean, oh yes, definitely. And you realize so much, like, you know, Marty and I, my husband and I will often go back to Thailand because, you know, we love Thailand for many different reasons, but you realize each time you go back, you realize, like, my friends were just such a huge part of why I loved Thailand so much. So, like, you go back to these places and it's like, you notice that there's this piece, this factor missing, you know?
So it's like a different experience almost, right? When you go back.
Yep. Completely different experience.
So kind of leading into that, one of the things when people find out that I've traveled a bunch, I usually get like, so what's the best country you've ever been to? Like, what's, you know, what do you love? And so, you know, I feel like it's just really an impossible question to answer. You're comparing apples to oranges. And when it comes to different countries, but not only that, like I've had special experiences in certain places or traveled with certain people that made it so special. And so, like, to me, I always thought, oh, the better question would be like, what countries or cities hold a special place in your heart? So you've traveled extensively. What is that? You know, what are the special places for you and why?
Oh, there's so many, like, beautiful places in this world. It's so hard to narrow it down. I remember we were living in Thailand, and I went on this hiking trip with a bunch of colleagues, and we went to Nepal, and we did the Annapurna base camp. And, you know, coming from Thailand, where it's so hot and humid, and going to Nepal and being, you know, surrounded by these, like, mountains that are just so beautiful, like, you just can't even describe how beautiful they are because they're just amazing. But that was definitely a trip that I loved, hiking and, you know, meeting locals and, you know, playing cards and eating local food, and just seeing the beautiful mountains in this beautiful, beautiful country. For me, that was a special trip. Definitely, Tanzania was amazing. Mount Kilimanjaro, which I thought I was never going to make it to the top, and I almost didn't.
Oh, that's amazing. Good for you.
Yeah, I did it. But, you know, there's so many beautiful places in the States too. But like we were talking about, you know, so much of that has to do with the people that surround you. So, yeah, I mean, Hawaii, hello. I wouldn't mind doing an expat stint there.
I kind of am. And we were not expecting, you know, so we left Hawaii and we were going to Shanghai, and we were not expecting to come back. We had actually shipped all of our stuff to California at my brother-in-law's house, thinking that we would be making our way stateside eventually. You know, we didn't know how long we'd be. But yeah, so I'll tell the rest of the story. Things didn't quite work out for my husband job wise. I was the one who got the position at SCIS to start up a special education program at SCIS, one of the international schools there. And my husband was a trailing spouse, and he did a long-term sub position for Debbie, who was on a woman on maternity leave. And while he loved it, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to fill his sails, and he was kind of like, "What am I doing here?" And he had moments of like, "Did I try hard enough to try to make it work for us to stay overseas?" And I, I I think you have to be true to yourself, and figuring out what's the right path for you. So anyway, Adam ended up moving back to Hawaii, and I like kind of couldn't wrap my head like, oh, we're going back to Hawaii, like, which sounds crazy, right? Because Hawaii is gorgeous and has so much to offer, but career-wise, I was nervous about that for me. And anyway, we ended up moving back. We've made it our home now. We'll be here probably until Adam retires. So you're welcome to come back anytime. But, I was just talking to another friend of mine today. And Adam and I talk about this a lot too, that Hawaii is a little bit like another country in that there are other culture. There's a different culture here than there is, at least from where I grew up in New Jersey, and probably other states, places in the U.S. too, right? But there's a strong Asian population here, which also brings a lot of those Asian cultures here. And the strange thing here is that, not strange, but the situation that we're in here is that it's like you're in another country, but you're not an expat. So people, you move here and everybody already has their own support systems here. So you don't become these fast and furious friends right away. Like I feel like we had, and probably how you have been in other countries too. And anyway, it just becomes, it's a different experience, and it's not always been easy acclimating back to the U.S. and in Hawaii. So anyway, I hope that one day we will make our way internationally again once we are old and we can hopefully we can still make it out there. But anyway, I'm sorry I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but
that's the beautiful thing about international school teaching is that it's here. It's always going to be here, and if you ever decide, if the both of you or the three of you now ever decide that, like, yes, this is something that we really want to, try again, give it a go, it's there, you can, and I think, like, going back to Adam in Shanghai, I think he did a great job of finding his place outside of the school culture as well. Like, I think that's, because it is this like built-in like circle of friends, like, it's being a trailing spouse this year has been, people from the school definitely, they embrace me. Like, I am a part of that school. It's not like I am, this outsider. I am definitely a part of the school. But it's different when you're not like actually teaching in the school.
And how has it been different for you? What is that?
It's just, like? Because I'm not there every day. Like, I feel like I miss out on certain things, or I feel like, people know each other better because they're there, every day together, or like, they'll often discuss their classes, or like how, certain things that if you're not in the school, you wouldn't really understand. And that can be hard, because it's this thing that, it's this commonality that all of your friends have, but when you're not teaching in the school, you don't have that, so you do have to be willing to step out and make friends outside of the school. And I think, like with Adam, I think he did a great job of doing that, and I think he found a lot of things that were that were interesting, you know, working with the scuba shop, and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, being able to train people on how to use Taobao when it was something that was so new. Like, he was the first one. He was the trailblazer, and he taught everybody how to do it. And that's
He
like
did, didn't
a
he?
huge
He should have
deal.
charged you guys. We should have charged
I
you
know, right?
guys.
But, you know, it's just it's an interesting life, you know. It is, and it's not for everyone. I mean, we've seen lots of people go home after a year. It's, you know, it's not for everyone. And but I mean, I wouldn't change our experiences for the world.
Mm-hmm. So what's in
But
store for you? Oh, so go ahead.
oh, gosh, what's in store for us coming up? I think that
And
we'll
for
probably
you professionally, you know, you
me
mentioned.
professionally.
Mhm.
So, um, you know, they're with COVID, they're unsure about how the school year is going to look. So they have a plan, and they have, you know, some ideas of what's going to happen and how the school year will look. They're not quite sure exactly where I will be, but I'll be somewhere in the school. So that
You
but
will.
it,
So you've gotten
I
hired for
will.
a position. Okay.
Yes, yeah. They just
Oh,
don't know exactly what grade
congratulations.
level. Thank you. Thanks. They're just not sure exactly what grade level it will be in. And so, you know, being an early childhood teacher, like that's my passion. That's what I've been doing for, you know, my 14 years as a teacher. And so to not be in the class, and especially coming off of 5 years in Shanghai, which I absolutely loved the early childhood there. Like, it was an amazing program, and I would love to be able to recreate that somewhere else.
Mhm.
But I'm also really excited, you know, for the challenge of possibly teaching third grade, possibly teaching middle school. You know, I mean, there's so many things that you can do out there, and it's scary at first, and the unknown can be very, you know, but I think maybe as expats, that's something that we kind of learn to
Roll
embrace.
with. Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
And I think one of the nice things about that too is as expats, it sounds like you know the teachers there, you know that you have friends there that work in the school, that you have a support system there. So if you needed to, go to another teacher that you could bounce ideas back or they could share content with you or, like so versus, maybe another place. I don't know. Maybe, but I just feel like I know the internationals, at least at SCAS, everybody was very willing to help one another out. So
Yes,
you'd say the
totally.
same.
And I like, hands down. I mean, the people that I teach with are like, they are amazing educators, and I've loved just being able to go into their classrooms and see their different personalities and like pick up little tidbits of like, ooh, that's a good idea. I'm going to use that when I have my own classroom again.
Hmm. Hmm.
And people are just, yeah, they really are. I mean, they're so generous and so willing to spend the time, you know, to talk about teaching or just talk about
Hmm.
anything.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
yeah, definitely the school culture here is one that embraces people, and they have really been the main reason why we love it so much here, is because we feel like we've made some really fantastic friends that we hope to be around for a long, long time.
Oh, good. So that's a good segue. So what do you think your future will hold for you now that you're in Saudi?
I think that this is a really great place to be and build a retirement. Um, and we just bought a brand new car, which is really exciting because I've never owned a new car. And so, you know, that's a small little investment that we've made, you know, and I'm thinking
Well, what do
about
you
getting a dog.
oh, what do you have? What is your car? Like,
It's
is it one that we would
it's
know?
Yeah, it's a Toyota Land Cruiser, but it's the Prado
Oh.
edition. So it's a seven seater car, but it's not as big as the Land Cruisers. So it's the perfect size for Marty and I and a dog. And those are roots. I mean, we have a 3-bedroom house. We're like getting more furniture. It's unfurnished, so we are definitely we're investing in here. Like we are definitely laying down roots, and
that's funny.
And
After the first year, right? Like, I mean, so different from after being in Shanghai for 5 years and Philippines for how many? 3? Is it?
3, yeah. 2 for me, 3 for Marty.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't, but when we got our jobs in Shanghai, so we went to a job fair coming out of the Philippines, and we thought we wanted to be in the Middle East. But then when we were making our decision whether to go to the Middle East or go to Shanghai, we picked Shanghai, and I thought, okay, yeah, 2-3 years maybe. But I mean, even after 5 years, I could have stayed there, happily stayed there, because I loved our school and I loved our friends there, and I loved our home, and I loved Shanghai. But it was time. It was time to move on, and so I'm happy that we did, but I know how good we had it there as well. It's a very special place.
Yeah,
sure.
There's something about just kind of it seems like people, I don't really, my circumstances were a little different, but it seems like people just kind of know when it's time to move on to the next place, whether that's like going somewhere where you're going to retire, usually back to the US, I feel like is more or your home country, which is more common. But yeah, so that's interesting that you were looking at the Middle East before Shanghai.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it could have happened, but just at last minute, we just decided that, Shanghai sounded really cool. And we really enjoyed our interviews with the principals and the head of school. So yeah, that's what we decided. But the Middle East, I mean, I actually did have the chance to visit a friend in Oman when I was living in Shanghai, and she was in Oman. And going on that trip was like, yeah, I could definitely see myself in a Middle Eastern country. And it's outdoorsy. Like we have, I mean, it's not so much now because of the heat. Like it's 120 degrees today. So it's hot, but it's a dry heat. So the dry heat, we're thankful
that's always the comment that comes after, like when somebody says how hot it is. Oh, but it's the dry heat. Like, I don't care. 120 degrees sounds insane.
But it's like when, think about when we were in Shanghai and we just arrived, like it was so hot and it was so humid, like you couldn't go in.
You're just dripping, right?
Like sweat, just so much sweat everywhere. And here it's weird. Like you get sweaty, but it's not the same as a humid climate. It's just not. And I grew up in the desert, so like this for me is 120 is normal for me. But you adjust your schedule too. Like you spend more time out in the early hours in the morning and in the evening. So just kind of cool because you see a lot of people, like you see people out and about. Like I leave my house and I see kids from the school, and the nice thing is that they all know me because I was around the school in the different classrooms, and they're like, Miss Emily. Get to see, like,
so sweet.
I love it. Love it.
So what does that look like for you? What is like a daily a schedule, a daily day for you in Saudi?
So, there's so many different things you can do. And that's the nice thing about our camp is that you can be as busy as you want, or you can be as, just chill and kind of do whatever. I've learned to do more cooking because unlike Shanghai, we do have restaurants on the camp that will deliver, but it's not like Shanghai where you can have anything delivered.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a lot more cooking here, which is nice. I
I
enjoy.
always thought you did a lot of cooking in Shanghai
I
too.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a little more adventurous with the foods that I do cook now, which is kind of cool. And
Oh, really?
learning how to make like um, different like Middle Eastern salads or Indian
Mm.
food or
Mm-hmm.
just hummus, tabbouleh, baba ganoush is one of my favorites. Like I just
Mm-hmm.
learning how to make that stuff, which is nice. I'm learning how to take care of a sourdough starter, which is, I bake a lot of bread.
That, yeah. And so
Labor
how
intensive.
did you, okay. So how did you get your sourdough starter? Like where did you
I
get it from?
have a friend who took a class, um, and she got some of the starter from the lady who offers these like bread making courses, which I ended up doing as well. And yeah, she just gave me a little bit of the starter and
Oh,
we
okay.
kind of like grow it from there. Are you a
So it's
sourdough
no,
baker?
well, so I've read all about it. Like I
Okay.
can tell you about it, but I've never done it. And I actually just met a woman over the weekend. So I was learning how to do shibori. I'm saying it wrong because it's not
Mm,
Japanese, but it's like the shibori dyeing. It's
yeah,
the indigo kind of dyeing that they do.
yeah,
I was
beautiful.
learning how to do it this weekend. And of course, it's much harder than I initially thought it would be. It was really hard. But anyway, the woman who was teaching me, she was saying that I was asking her about it and where did you get your starter? And she's like, oh, my son sent it to me from San Francisco. And I was like, oh my
Mm,
gosh, like,
there
could
you
you imagine?
go.
Yeah. So
Yep, there you
I thought,
go.
I didn't know if like you get it fresh in Saudi or you have it
So
delivered in or.
apparently, so the lady that has these bread making courses, like the starter that she had was named Callie, and Callie is a starter that was from the United. I mean, it's years and years old,
Mhm.
but came from the U.S. And I mean, you get a starter, and it's like there's so many people who have kind of added to it, and so you don't know exactly where it's
Mhm.
from. It's just because it's just kind of being passed around, which is kind of neat too. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I
How
mean,
hard is it to get things into Saudi? Like, could your family
like
send
shipping.
you a package or, yeah, because like you would
Yeah,
never recommend anybody from the US sending anything to you in Shanghai, right? Because you don't get lost or,
it's just expensive. Like
hmm
there's I don't know, maybe they had it in Shanghai too, but there's like different companies that you can go through. Like there's a company called Shop and Ship or Aramex, and you'll have boxes, like different mail boxes like around the world. So you can, order things online and they send it to your like Aramex account. And then when you have so many packages, the Aramex will send it to Saudi, which is easy to do. It's just
hmm
expensive. So I typically don't order things online because I can find most of the things that I need here.
on the cam.
Um, yeah, I mean, the commissary, I mean, it's a smaller grocery store, but it's amazing like how much they can pack into like a small supermarket. I mean, I can get pretty much anything that I need there. And if I
hmm
can't, we can go off camp to like the next biggest city to us is a city about 45 minutes away. It's called Hafuf, and they have
hmm
large, big grocery stores there. And I can get anything that, like, I saw there's a grocery store called Tamimi, and it used to be Safeway, and I think we have Safeways in the States, but they have
hmm
like Kirkland brand or
hmm
Safeway Select. So I was able to get Moose Tracks ice cream
Oh,
in the middle of Saudi. Like, okay,
that's
yeah.
great.
The nice thing about our car too is that we have an ice, like a cool box in between, like, so like the center console is like a refrigerator, because if you don't have that, things just get so
Right.
hot, like you can't.
Right. I didn't even think
So
about
that,
that.
yeah,
They
yeah.
should sell those in Hawaii too.
Tell them. My friend
So
has a cool box.
so speaking of things like, kind of the special treats that are American, like, is there anything that you miss in particular about being in the US, or that I mean, I know that we all had the things that we, as before the summer would come, we'd kind of be like, oh, what are you dying to get when you go home, right? Like, and it doesn't have to be US, wherever your home country is, but is there anything that you miss in particular, or that you're just like, oh, I got to bring all this back with me when I come to study?
Yeah, definitely a good margarita and a big plate of any kind of Mexican food. Chili rellenos, tamales, enchiladas. I tried to make enchiladas the other day and it just was not the same.
Mm.
So definitely am missing good Mexican food, good margarita, stiff drinks, lots of nice wine. I do miss that.
Mhm.
And In-N-Out hamburgers. Oh.
Yeah,
Mm,
even I miss that, right? That's
I
only
know.
California, right?
They have, I think they're in like 7 different states now, but
Oh.
yeah, I mean, definitely started from in California, so and moved their way north and east from there.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh, nice. What so talk about, we before, when we were kind of, texting before we started the show, you mentioned that it's really difficult to get alcohol there. What is it like? What is that like? What's the difference? I guess,
just,
what are
I
some of
mean,
the restrictions that are common restrictions that you have? Not restrictions, but differences even in Saudi.
completely, I mean, Saudi is a completely dry country.
Hmm.
So you can't buy alcohol here. And we can go over to Bahrain, which is like a 2-hour drive for us. So like
Hmm.
Bahrain is kind of like our little expat, playground.
Getaway. Hmm.
Yeah, they've got the ocean and they've got, I mean, Saudi has the ocean too, but they've got, really nice like brunches and all inclusive. So we will
Hmm.
often go to Bahrain and indulge there, which is really nice. But yeah, you can't. It's just it's they're very strict about that here. So
Are you
so
able
I
to drive? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
am I able to drive?
Hmm.
Not yet. I don't have a Saudi driver. I can drive on the camp. But they just started issuing driver's licenses to women.
Hmm.
Uh, but I am considered a dependent because I'm under Marty's um,
Visa?
paperwork visa and all of
Hmm.
that. So dependent women, they did open up for dependent women at the very beginning, but then they shut it down. So now the dependent women cannot get driver's licenses, but they're supposed to be opening it up again at some point.
Hmm.
Um, I have friends who drive with their U.S. licenses and translate it into Arabic.
Hmm.
Um, but I do love driving, but
Hmm.
it's not something that I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to get my driver's license right now. It's not for me. That's not such a huge deal.
Hmm.
Because I can just have Marty drive me everywhere. And we have a pact where like if I ask him to take me anywhere, he has to do it because I can't. So he has to. And he does. He's very good about
That's
that.
good. Oh,
Yeah,
Marty's a good guy.
he's a great guy. Yep.
Yeah.
I love him. I love him a lot.
Is is there anything about Saudi that I guess I just remember Jane McMillan, our elementary school principal in Shanghai,
Uh-huh.
talking about, like, there were just some things that would just frustrate her living in the Middle East. Are there things like that just like we had moments in Shanghai that we were just
Oh
like,
yeah.
you just wanted to pull your hair out. Like,
Yeah.
have you had those moments and kind of like, what is like the bank was the thing in Shanghai, right? Like, so what was it? What is it in Saudi for you?
I feel like similar to Shanghai, sometimes there's paperwork that we don't really understand, like why we're doing it the way we're doing it, but
Mhm.
those are just the rules. So we do it. um,
Mhm.
I'm trying to think. I mean, just going through the process of buying the car, like we couldn't test drive our car before we bought it, which was kind of
Mhm.
like we went to it's not like buying a car in the United States where you go to this lot and there's hundreds of cars and you can test drive one and decide then. Like it was, we have 4 cars here and they're display cars and you can't drive them, and like it was, that experience was a bit different for us.
Mhm.
uh, I'm trying to think of like, I mean, driving is very different. You have to be defensive, and we drive fast here, so you have
Mhm.
to be comfortable with driving fast. I mean, they now have like video, not video, like cameras, on the highways, which have kind of slowed people down a little bit, which is good.
Mhm. And what's
But
fast? Like, what are you?
like
What's
so like, I don't know, like
Oh,
80
because you
miles
don't.
an hour. Um, yeah, like, well, the suggested speed limit on the highways is 120 kilometers an hour, which is what, like 60
I
miles an
I don't
hour, which
know.
doesn't
You're asking
seem
the wrong
great, but
person.
they don't
That,
do like the 60-mile an hour. It's
that
more
sounds
like,
very much like the U.S. Everywhere
yeah,
but Hawaii. Yeah.
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 And the lines on the road are like more like suggestions, like, stay in this lane, but like, it's very common to see people passing on the left side, and and you just get used to it, and then it
Right. They
becomes
become the new rules of the road.
exactly. I mean, Shanghai
Mhm.
had the same thing. I mean, you
Thailand
just
too, right?
Thailand. You
Mhm.
just get used to it, and then it becomes your normal. And then you go home and you drive and you're like, why are you going so slow?
And then you pass them on the left, and yeah.
You pass them on the left, cop pulls you over, and yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I think like paperwork sometimes can be frustrating, but yeah, luckily we don't have the bank issues like we did when we were in Shanghai. We're not spending an hour and a half of our weekend at the bank trying to transfer money home because they pay you into your US account.
All right. Well, the
Yay.
nice thing about I feel like the trick that we learned later on, well, at least in my 2 years, I feel like I learned it in the second half of my 2 years was like, oh, then you go to Morton's afterwards and everything's okay. The Morton's happy hour made everything okay after that 3 hour bank
Exactly.
experience. And then your
Oh,
friends are there and they all just went through the same crap and like you're okay.
I do miss that. I do miss the Morton's happy hour. That was a lot. That was fun. Yeah, but don't miss the bank. Don't miss the
No.
bank experiences.
So, I want to ask you about certain like current things going on in Saudi. In America, I mean, well, all over the world, COVID is happening, right? So, has COVID affected life in Saudi, and how? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it was interesting because the country, Saudi, closed down really fast. They
Hmm.
shut the borders really fast.
When was that?
So, like back in March.
Hmm.
So, we weren't able to travel outside of the country. And even now, like there are no international flights going in or out. There's repatriation flights, but if you get on one of those, it's like you're not coming back. And we don't really know when the borders will open.
Mm-hmm.
again. So that was, I mean, that's, I think, just the scariest part is, not feeling like I could get home if I needed to. I mean, I could
Mm-hmm.
get home, but I'm staying. I'm not
And you have
coming
to
back
stay
if I.
there, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's a different. I mean, just based on like the conversations that I have with my family back home and like what I see on the news, like, people knew it was, this was coming and they prepared for it. We shut down and there were curfews. I mean, we couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
it was 9 to 5 curfew. And, people don't like, you don't break those curfews really. I mean, if they tell you to do something, you kind of do it. And I feel like it's, it can be frustrating sometimes, but it's also like, it's security. Like, we don't have people fighting about wearing masks here. You wear it because, I mean, hopefully that's a way to protect yourself and others,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just not it's not a fight here. And so, I think for me, that gives me a sense of security. I know for other people, it can make them feel like they're, being told what to do, or they're, they don't, I don't know. I don't know why I don't know why it would be an issue for some people. For me, it gives me a sense of security. And so, so yeah, the inability to travel out of the country has been, a way that it's impacted us. Our school went to distance learning, and they'll probably continue distance learning for the first part of the school year here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I mean, but it got to the point where it was like, it was sad. Like, it was sad to not see my friends, because you weren't supposed to have gatherings, like no gatherings in your home. If you were going out during the curfew hours, it was, to the grocery store, to the hospital. Like, they close down all of the common spaces and the gyms and all of that. So, I mean, impacted the way people in the States were also impacted,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but also just like, not being able to travel. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it sounds similar. I've kept in touch with some of the other people that we worked with in Shanghai, and they're in the Philippines or in South Korea, and still China, and yeah, everybody's afraid to leave or isn't leaving because they're afraid they're not going to be able to get back in, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then you don't have a job, and then what do you do, right? And it's hard to find jobs elsewhere, and it's hard. It's a tough place to be in right now. And
Yeah.
have you been able to see any of your friends or people
The,
since?
so the curfew's been lifted. Like, it's been lifted for 2 or 3 weeks now.
Okay.
So yeah, we're able to now like hang out in smaller groups. And like, we went camping last weekend, which was a lot of fun. And but we're still trying to do like the a bit of distance,
Mhm.
and we're still aware of, that COVID is there, and we have to be more aware and careful. But yeah, I mean, we're able to get together and do small things together. Still no
Mhm.
large. They still don't want you doing like large gatherings and parties in your house. Not yet. So
Mhm. It
hopefully
sounds
it's.
it sounds really similar to Hawaii in that way, that we've kind of shut down the borders. It
Mhm.
is so weird to be here without any tourists. I mean, now I'm kind of used to it, but initially it was like crazy to see Waikiki with
Oh,
the
but
stores boarded up and nobody on the street.
summertime.
And oh yeah, it's so bizarre. Um, but also it's really nice at the same time.
Yeah.
But and then also at the same time, it's really awful because our whole industry is tourism. And I mean, economy is run, I don't know the exact percentage, but a lot of our economy is run by tourism. So it's like, what's going to happen? There's a high unemployment rate right now, and anyway, it's complicated and it's a mess.
Yeah.
But I think what's similar to everybody is that we all miss we're social beings, right? And we miss the social contact, and it's kind of nice, here a couple weeks ago they started opening up some things, and yeah, and it's just nice to be in touch with people again
Yeah,
more than
totally.
before. Hmm.
Yeah, it's, I'm so thankful that we have technology and we're able to do all the things that we're able to do, over the computer and um, through technology. But it's just, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just not the
It's not
same.
the
Just
same.
not the same. No,
It's
it
not the
isn't.
same.
No, no.
So also, also in the US, right, well, not right now, but in the last month, at least the last month and a half, Black Lives Matters has been a huge movement within the US. Have you, and while there's not a large Black population, in Hawaii, for example, it still has sparked some activism here. Have you guys had any influence by the Black Lives Matter movement in the US?
We have actually, we have now, which I've really enjoyed and have been so thankful to be a part of. A couple of the teachers from our school ended up putting together this, we call it safe space, where we can come together as a group and share experiences, ask questions, and as they relate to race and racism, but not just that. I mean, how people, LGBTQ are, and our experiences in Saudi and our experiences overseas, and it's just a space where we can get together to talk about the way we feel and the way that we might not feel about it, because there's so many things that we don't realize that we're doing, or so many things that we grew up with that we think are okay, and it's not, but
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't have ever had that opportunity. I mean, we have opportunities to do it, but we realize, I think now, that this is the time where we can get together and figure out ways to just make this space a safer place for everyone. And we have some really fantastic leaders in our school who have taken a lot of things on, and definitely working on how to be more inclusive in our school. And I think that there's definitely going to be some change, and especially like Marty, as a social studies teacher, bringing that to the children's attention, and seeing what action they're willing to take
Mm-hmm.
on certain issues. So definitely is something that we felt here. And of course we follow what's happening in the States, and you can't not do something. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you have to do so. You have to do something about it. You have to start with these conversations and dialogue. And I feel very fortunate to have been a part of that. So,
Mm-hmm. Very
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Good. Um, Gosh, one of the things that I'm having a hard I as I was kind of coming up with this question, I had a hard time reflecting on it myself, but I know that there were differences here. But what are the views towards Americans and America, I guess, and have they changed over time, or even like by the country you're in? Yeah, I guess I'll start there.
It's a difficult question to answer, because I think, yeah, I do think that people around the world see what's happening in the United States, and it was kind of like a double whammy with the way COVID has been handled, and now with a BLM, and things that are happening in the States, police brutality, and all of that. So I think that people see that, and but I think that we, as an American population, we were vulnerable, and there were other countries that stepped up and said, hey, like, this happens here too, this is happening here. Like, nobody really knew how to deal with COVID, and I think that I think that it was new, it was new for everyone. I think that, we probably should have done a better job listening to physicians and listening to scientists, but that obviously didn't really happen. And so, but yeah, I mean, I think that, we all have our vulnerabilities. And I think that definitely, the United States, we have been, the world is watching. And so,
do you feel like you've been treated differently at all, having lived in, the countries you've lived in?
A large population.
Whether for better or worse,
Yeah. In Saudi Arabia, Americans were definitely allies here. It would be interesting to see if there's any difference in the way that Americans are treated now, like with the relationship between China and the United States. I never really felt like people would single me out. And in the Philippines, every once in a while, Marty and I would be riding our bikes, and, people would say, hey, Joe, and because he's American, a GI Joe, or,
right.
But, I honestly, I haven't felt like I've been singled out because I am an American in any country that I've lived in. But I also, like, when I'm
how about when you were at sorry, go ahead. How about when you're at a red light and you're on your bicycle in Shanghai, and all of a sudden you're like, and like you feel like 8 eyes on you, people just staring, right?
Yeah.
Not to say that they treated us any differently, but how curious they were, because we were not Chinese, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And at first I remember being like, I just like look away, right? And I did that for the longest time, and how unfortunate, because then once I realized, like, oh, all I have to do is like turn and say hi, and then they're like, ni hao, then oh, we're all good. Like, it wasn't an uncomfortable situation anymore.
Yeah. And I think that, that's kind of our duty as Americans, or as expats, like being overseas. The world is not a scary place, and a simple hello in different countries will go a long way. And especially in China, like, I think a lot of times, yes, similar experiences, people sometimes just don't know what to make of you because you are different. But, the light and the sparkle and like the eyes of people when you just say hello, like, it's, that's priceless. That's part of why I love living overseas so much, is because, you meet these people, and a simple hello just
can make such a difference, right?
It really does. In Saudi, which is funny, like, I don't, especially because we're on the camp, like, I don't feel that different. There's a lot of Canadians and Americans on the camp, but like, even out in the malls and, you know, I'm different, but I don't get any, like, I don't get the same looks or attention as I did when I was in Southeast Asia or in China.
Mhm.
You know, it's you're kind of just like, you're just there, you know,
Yeah.
you're
Another
just
person
there.
shopping. Yeah.
You're just another person shopping. And so, you know, when I go out, when I'm off the camp, I do wear the abaya. You know, it's a black robe kind of that you put on to cover up, and I don't have to wear the head covering, the hijab. I don't have to wear that, but I think because I do wear my abaya, I just kind of blend in. But I just don't
Mhm.
get the same, I don't get the same attention that I did when I was in, which is nice actually, because
Mhm.
just another person.
Right. Right. We don't want to be stared at all the time. um, well, one of the things that so when I first I came to Shanghai in March before I started my job, and oh, how cute your cup is! Is that Starbucks? Is that a Starbucks edition?
It is, yeah.
They have great cups.
Maybe I'll send
Um,
you one.
oh, I would love that. Would you? I said I remember when I was in Shanghai and doing a lot of international traveling. Then I was like, oh, I'm going to start a collection. Did you do that? How many do you
I do
have?
collect magnets. I don't know. I don't collect these cups. This
Oh,
was like a
oh, oh.
nice little gift from the Sunshine Committee at our school.
Oh.
But yeah, but like I do collect magnets.
Hmm.
So yeah, I do have a lot, which is funny because I've met like 3 other magnet collectors here on camp. Like,
Well, I'm a magnet collector too. You
are
know
you
what? You
really?
know why I think we're magnet collectors? This is my theory. Is because number one, I'm cheap. And number two, they're like the easiest thing.
They're so
They're like
easy.
the easiest thing to just pick up and
They
bring
are.
back as like
Yeah,
I kind of like a little token and I can check that
yeah.
box off, you know?
It's so
Right?
true. I used to
But
collect snow globes, and I'm like, this is the most difficult collection to like schlep around the world with me because you have to be so careful with them. They're water, so you're not sure if people are going to stop you because you're not allowed to have more than 3 ounces of liquid. It's just, I'm like,
Emily,
okay,
I'm so glad I didn't know about you earlier. I would have totally made fun of you a long time ago. You know why?
but
Because one of my girlfriends from college had the same collection, and oh, we like beat her bloody with all the jokes.
oh, I love a snow globe. They're so
Yeah,
sweet. Like they're just so soothing and majestic, you know?
that's exactly what she said too.
Yeah, I just love it. But yeah, but they're
Um,
kind of a bitch to carry around for sure.
yeah. Well,
Magnets are much easier.
you also have a really beautiful mask collection that I admire and wish I had started when I was traveling. Do you still
Yeah,
have
yeah,
you added to that
we
collection? How
do.
many masks do you have?
Well, we got a few from China, some really beautiful, like ornate ones from China. Yeah, we have probably 15, and then Marty has, because that's Marty's collection. That's what
Oh.
he likes, and he has a few back home as well. But yeah, it's a pretty collection and a beautiful reminder. It was funny
Mm.
though, he had gotten a mask from Bali, which was like, it was a bit scary and the eyes were a little creepy, and you know, you're supposed to put it by your doorway to like ward off the evil spirit. So when we were in China, when we moved into our apartment, we had put the mask outside of our door, and we got a
You're like,
letter like,
welcome. Welcome.
right, we got a week later, we got a letter from our neighbor that was like, your mask is scaring our children. Please take it down. And I'm like, it is scary. Like, why? What was I thinking? Like, can you imagine being like,
So
they were
funny.
young. They were like 3, and then like the older the son was probably like 6, maybe 7, like, and I'm like, gosh, how could I do that? But
Yeah, you work with young children too,
I know,
Emily.
I know better. I'm like, oh, sorry. Uh,
Oh. So I started to say before that before I moved to Shanghai, Dan Jubert, the head of school, had told me to come out for a look-see, to come and check out the school and um, I guess just get a feel and just
mm,
kind of give me a little heads up about, kind of what's in store. Um, and I remember, I had grown up in Asia. And so I just felt like, oh, I'm going to be going back. This is like, kind of like old stomping grounds, even though it's not. And I remember after my first day of being on the Pudong campus at the elementary school, at the end of the day, I looked outside of the Holiday Inn that was near just down the road, the hotel, and being like, oh my God, what have I done? Like really having oh my God, now I have to go home to Adam and be like, it's okay if we don't go, or like, just having like a real moment of like, oh my gosh, like what have you ever had those I feel like that's kind of like I don't I feel like I've had maybe more than one of those. It's probably my biggest one that I've ever had. But like, have you ever had those what have I done moments? And how have those
yeah.
panned out for you?
Well, I mean, I've loved every single country that I've lived in for sure. So yeah, I mean, I think that we all have, some apprehensions of living overseas, and what is the country going to be like, and am I going to be able um, am I going to be able to stay longer than a few years, and how, there's all these questions I think that we have when we're moving to a new country. Um, Definitely like moving to the Middle East was because it's such an unknown, like it was such an unknown for me. And I mean, and even with Saudi, like they just opened up tourism, tourist visas, within like the last 8 months. So, I mean, that
Oh, I didn't
happened
know
when we were here. Yeah. So
that. Mhm.
the government is now issuing tourist visas, which is great because this country has so much, like we talked about earlier, the diversity and the beauty. Like there's so much for people to be able to see here. Um, but so that was a little bit like, so I'm okay. So I'm moving to a country, like, and I'm going to be living in a small, tiny camp of 2,500 people. I'm moving from Shanghai, 28 million people, to this tiny little camp, and my family
Right.
can't visit me. And, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Mm.
So yes, definitely I've had some of those moments, and even coming back, like because I went home for December holiday, and even coming back, like there were some things that had happened in the Middle East in early January that I was like, oh man, like should I be worried about this? Like, is this something that like I'm going to be traveling on an airplane? Like, is it safe?
Well,
You know,
what were those things that you were kind of worried
um,
about?
so like at the beginning of the school year with the there were bombings in Iran, and so that was a bit scary for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going to be traveling by myself because Marty had already gone back to Saudi like a week before I came back because I had a little extra time. So that was, something that, was
Unsettling.
scary. That was scary for me. I mean, yeah, it was something that I just, I don't know. But then COVID came, and that kind of everybody's focus shifted on that. And but I do feel very secure here. I feel like I'm in a very safe country. I've never really feared for anything. When I was traveling here, yeah, there were some times when I was like, oh boy, like, okay. But yeah, I mean, I guess it just, kind of comes with the territory. And, that's another decision that expats have to make. Like, there are things that happen in the world, and, should I just stay in the United States in my little, bubble, or should I, try doing this overseas? And so,
and it's funny that you say, should I stay in the US in my little bubble? I don't know if you remember, Cleo's husband, Pere, who was from Spain, and he was terrified to come to the US for the first time because of all the gun violence that we have in the US. And so, while I think a lot of times, we think that, as Americans, I don't think we feel, of course, this is a generalization, but we don't feel scared. I think generally we feel safe. But for an international traveler to come to the US, that was so eye-opening to me that he felt scared. And then especially like with going through customs and the way that he was questioned and I don't want to say interrogated, but the way that he was questioned and had to go through certain procedures before he could come in was something that I was totally unaware of. And anyway, I just am so curious to hear about how Saudi is compared to the other, like in terms of safety, compared to the other countries that you've lived in.
I mean, definitely Thailand, the Philippines, China, I felt very safe there as an expat. Like of course there's places in those countries where it's like, okay, just exercise caution when you go. But in the larger cities in Shanghai, I was fine walking down, the street at 1:00 in the morning if that was happening. I mean, I never really feared for my safety there. And I mean, the same here. I mean, I don't know if I'd go walking down the street in, Saudi at 1:00 in the morning off camp because people drive fast. There's not as many lights on the street, but I don't feel like the gun violence and that, like, that's not something that you just, because the people don't have guns here. I mean, there are people with guns, but it's just not something that I worry about as much as maybe I would in the States. I mean, even when I go and visit my mom in Arizona, you can carry a weapon on your hip in Arizona if you have a permit. And so that, for me, that's like, I mean, I think that, America is you have certain freedoms, and I think that, that's what makes our country great. But I also, as somebody who's not super comfortable with guns, like, that was a little bit like, whoa, that was different for me to see. And that's just not really something that you see here.
Yeah.
So,
or in Shanghai either, right?
Or in Shanghai.
I remember feeling incredibly safe there.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, was it just because I was in this like expat bubble and I was so naive and like I wasn't keeping up with Chinese news, and sometimes you question how accurate that news is anyway, right? But anyway, I felt completely safe. I had no reason. I can't remember, and like any horror stories of anybody, that we knew, where we needed to be concerned or
Mhm.
scared for any reason. So
Yeah.
anyway.
I mean, you want to exercise caution wherever you go,
Mhm, mhm.
but I mean, I don't. I guess for me, the biggest fear is the unknown. Like at the very beginning, being in Saudi, like, oh, is it safe for me to take an Uber? Is it safe for me to? But I mean, the more you experience it, the more you're like, yes, it's a safe
Fine.
place. Like it's not,
Mhm,
and yeah, so it's just not. I don't worry so much here. I
mhm.
worry about, I think with a lot of people right now with COVID, we worried at one point about job security. Um, and we worried about, not being able to leave the country if we needed to. But yeah, I don't, safety wise, it's not something that I worry about here.
So, so do you, kind of going on a little bit of a lighter note, do you have any visitors planned? Is anybody going to come out to see you or?
Uh, I keep telling my mom. Actually, there is a guy on our camp right now. He's a fellow teacher, and his mom came out to visit him in February, and she's been stuck here since.
Oh,
She planned on staying for a month, but but she doesn't consider it stuck because I mean she's like getting
she's
to
with
spend
her
a lot of
son.
time with
Yeah.
her grandchildren and her
And how
son.
does he feel about it?
They love it. They love it because they have three children, all under the age of 6, and I think they were very thankful. And they don't have a nanny, so they were very thankful, especially both of them being home for distance learning. That the mother-in-law was there and able to help with that, and grandma loved it, and so she is. I mean, this is like I keep telling my mom, like, I have the women's gym, which has a huge pool, like brand new equipment, a sauna, a steam room, like there's everything, and it's like literally in my backyard, like it's a 2-minute walk from my house. I
Mhm.
have a little golf cart that I drive around on camp, like if I want
It's
to
a
go to
little
the
country
docks there,
club.
I get in the dog. Yeah, it's just it is it's like a retirement community. So I keep telling my mom, like, come out. We have, an extra room for you. I'd love for you to, spend time. Yeah, come on out.
I'll come. I'll come.
The most difficult part, like especially getting my mom out here, like the most difficult part is going home in December. It was the first time that I had traveled back home, and it was a long, exhausting trip. And
Mm,
I worry about that for my mom. So I told
mhm,
her, if you do plan on coming out here, like I will come and pick you up and fly
mhm,
back with you.
mm, mhm.
So she would have somebody there with her. So I think that it would be a hard trip. Like we were spoiled in Shanghai. Like we could get direct flights from Shanghai to Illinois to visit Marty's family. But getting
So what is
home,
it like?
so my camp is about a 2-hour drive from the international airport.
Mhm,
And then to get to, like, if I'm going to Las Vegas, flying into Las Vegas, that's that I have 2 layovers. So door to door,
mhm,
30 hours of travel,
mhm,
and
mhm.
it's a lot. It's a lot.
Right,
So
right.
it's not like, the 10-hour, 12-hour,
Direct
Shanghai
flight.
was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which
So I do
seemed
miss
like a
it.
breeze, right? We thought that was
It's,
easy then, right? Or we thought that was kind of like long and hard then.
Thailand, at that time, my dad was still in California, so I would go from Bangkok to Los Angeles, and it was that was
Oh
easy.
yeah,
So, and it
easy.
seemed
Yeah.
so much cheaper than it was flying out of Shanghai to the States. But now it's like Yep, it's a little more expensive getting from Saudi back home, and it just takes a lot more time and patience.
Mhm, mhm,
So
mhm. Well, I hope you get to see your family soon.
thank
And
you.
yeah, enjoy your time with all the time that you get to spend with Marty and the traveling that you're going to be doing soon.
Thank
Emily,
you. Yes, I'll keep you updated on that.
it's been so nice to see you. Thank you so much
Yes,
for
you
coming.
too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. It was when I got that message, I was like, yes, definitely.
Well,
So
it's
thank
like,
you so much for inviting me.
oh, you're welcome. It's a selfish, indulgent kind of hobby that I hope I'll continue. This has been a lot of fun for me to like catch up with you and ask you all
Yeah.
these questions that I haven't, that I had no idea about, and I think it'll be so interesting for everybody else to hear too. So
Yay.
yeah, Emily,
I
thank you
know.
so much.
Thank you. I said I was looking forward to seeing some of the other people that you're going to be interviewing and following you.
Yeah, because
Like,
I
congratulations on this. Like,
oh,
this is a
thank
big
you.
deal.
Well, I'm trying not to make it a big. I mean, it's just like my little pet project, and like I said, it's just like supposed to be fun and selfishly catching up with you guys a little bit. But really, I mean, I'm just like I said, it's just I'm so fascinated by international life still, and even though we are staying put in Hawaii for quite a while, it's kind of like I just want to keep my foot in what's happening and keep up with
You've
you
got a
guys
lot of
because
friends around the world.
I do. So, okay, well, I'll see you soon. I'll come to
Yes.
Saudi, you come to Hawaii.
Yes.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you. And
Thanks,
give a hug to
Emily.
Poppy and Adam for me, okay?
I will. I will.
All right.
Okay, we'll sign off.
Mwah.